always used to lay you clean up the messes. Down on my knees, thought I couldn't stand up on my own. Turns out sometimes you're stronger alone.
So want to welcome the Tediska family today to the Sean podcast, not the typical Sean podcast format. This is going to kind of harken back a little bit to the days when I was doing some success stories, just talking to people who have maybe done something a little bit different, or maybe are a little bit farther down a certain path where others may just be starting, and maybe we can learn from how other people have lived their lives post JW and see what kind of challenges have come up, and also where people have found solutions to those challenges. So we've got the whole family here. If you don't mind, just introduce yourself by first name so that everybody knows who each of you are.
I'm Dina.
I'm Dino.
I'm Lexi.
I'm Gabby.
All right. So what I thought we would do to kick this off is just have a little conversation, a little bit about your JW background for those who are familiar with the Sean podcast. Dino's story was episode 90. I think it's How You Treat People Matters, and a really good episode. So if you haven't heard that and you want to deep dive on his story, you can go back there. And today we're going to meet the rest of the family and see how everybody kind of worked together in the story. So what was your witness background? Obviously, Dino, we've talked some about yours, but, for the rest of the family, were you all raised around it, as kids? Dina, were you always one of Jehovah's Witnesses?
Well, my parents moved from Pennsylvania to Connecticut before I was born, actually. And it probably wasn't until I was maybe 2, I think. Actually, I'm not really sure how young I was because I just don't remember that much then. But somewhere along the line, my mom made a connection with somebody who was a witness. And from there, they became witnesses, and it was ever since then. So yeah, I basically grew up as a witness. I got married there too. So it was quite a few years.
Gotcha. So it's pretty much all you ever knew, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Dino, you were, just if you want to let people know a little bit about you.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. My mom was contacted by the witnesses when I was 2 or 3, and she was attracted to the messaging and was able to bring my father into it a few years later. And then we were raised in it through the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
All right. And so what about your kids here, Lexi and Gabby? Were you all exposed to it much? Were you around it?
So I have more minimal memories of being a JW as opposed to these guys, at least in the assembly, like being in the room. You know what I mean? There's other instances of it in my daily life, in school, and in our friendships, and that manifests in different ways. But in terms of being like in the assembly, in my, what was it? Did we go on Wednesdays to the Kingdom Hall? What day did we go? Thursdays.
Yeah.
So in my Thursday best, not my Sunday best, but in my Thursday best.
On Sundays.
Yeah.
Sundays.
Yes.
See, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't remember being there that much, but I do remember being there now and then in my dress with my books and everything like that. The specific bags that we had with the red and blue floral. So like, I have certain memories, but it's being in the room is not, I remember it's the littlest thing, but I don't remember like what they told me. I don't remember singing a little bit. I remember singing a little bit, but I didn't know what was going on. I was like too young for it to matter to me.
Yeah, I think, when we kind of started to pull away as a family, Lexi was definitely younger still at the time. So the impression was not as strong.
Yeah.
There's a 5-year difference between us. So 4.5, 5 years, roughly there. So I have a bit more of memory.
Yeah.
I kind of remember kind of the higher messaging that was there, the more generalized, not necessarily so much specifics. And kind of remember going multiple times a week and interacting with, the other members of the congregation and stuff. So I have a bit more memory compared to Lexi, but a lot more of it does also come from kind of the social aspect when we're out in, our daily lives from being younger.
Those are the most like
the stronger
detailed,
memories.
stronger memories that I have is like dealing with it in school and in my personal life as opposed to with other JWs.
Yeah.
So more the cultural aspect of it than maybe the doctrinal aspect, maybe
Yeah, I would think so.
how it impacted you socially then, in those realms. So how old were you to when everything, I guess, kind of slowed down and maybe came to a stop when you stopped going?
We stopped going to Kingdom Hall.
I think it's hard to
young.
really kind of put an age. It just
Right.
kind of naturally progressed out of our lives.
There's like, I remember Dad talking about different ways that people leave the congregation. We're people who's just sort of phased out. We didn't have a harsh cut.
Mhm.
There is one final cut that I remember Dad doing after I had already started college. So this has been within the last couple of years that we had like an official separation. But in terms of stopping the like showing up, that was really gradual. I think the only time I was there after being really young was when my grandfather had died, when Dad's dad did pass, and we had his funeral there. So that's the only other most recent time I've been in that Kingdom Hall was for that.
And how recent was that? How many years ago was that?
That was back in 2016.
In 2016. Okay.
Yeah.
So Lexi would have been in high school at that point.
Okay.
So there was like a big period of separation where like I didn't really go there anymore, and then all of a sudden like we had to be back there for Grandpa's funeral. So it was like, I don't know any of you people, and you're all mourning alongside me, and this is really odd, but hi.
Oh yeah, that has to feel really weird, especially when you're a kid walking into that environment and grieving the loss of a loved one, like you said, with a bunch of strangers. That's an interesting perspective. I've never really, when you think about so many Jehovah's Witness funerals or memorial services, there's often worldly family that comes in and has no idea what this thing is or is going to be, and they're kind of forced to grieve with a bunch of strangers. That has to be odd to do.
There were a lot of strangers at that.
Yeah, I think
It was so big. I mean, there was like 300 people there, so we didn't know most of the people
He knew so many people.
either.
Yeah. It was a very unique situation from all different perspectives.
Gotcha. So you said that there wasn't a hard stop; it was more of a fade, and that it was still around you to some degree, right? Because when you come from that environment, you don't fade and just necessarily stop having any of the feelings that you had as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, or maybe even some of the same beliefs. It's not always just a hard cut. It's not usually. And if I remember correctly, you all had a unique situation as well, because didn't you have some witness family who was living with you?
Yes. So mom and dad were my mom and dad were living with us. So my mom, even though she didn't really attend meetings anymore, and my dad was attending pretty much just on the phone at that time, it was pre-Zoom, they were still good about the overall, the messaging and the life lessons, if you will, of being a Christian were always dropped on the kids.
Grandpa would be in his room in the dark with his, what was it? Well, it was a projector, and he could zoom in on the books.
Yes.
So that way he could read it. And so he would be in the room in the dark with this big light from the overhead projector to read the JW books.
Oh, wow. So that was for magnification's sake?
Yeah, because his eyesight, they were both old.
Interesting.
Like his eyesight wasn't as good. He needed something to make it big.
So he had the large print watchtower and then an overhead projector, like each individual letter.
The man was blind.
Basically zooming in word by word.
I can't laugh. If I take my glasses off, you all cease to exist. So. I'm sure I'd be in the same boat at some point. So you all had that influence still around some. Had you guys kind of started your fade even while your grandparents were there?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Because we used to take him. I remember driving him to the hall.
Yeah.
And just dropping him off, and then he would get a ride home.
And it was just him?
Yeah, sometimes it was just him. Just
Yeah.
depended how each person was feeling, how they were feeling that
Yeah.
day.
Hmm.
Because being older and they weren't the best of health,
Gotcha.
he wanted to go, or you could have been. I don't think I ever took both of them. I think it was just him.
No, my mom had a really
Yeah.
odd. Well, you and I have talked about it, how she like completely made the truth her own, and like created her own little world and religion out of it, and like what was acceptable and what wasn't, and she just didn't see the need or felt up to going to the Kingdom Hall yet. I mean, she read every book, every magazine that came through. People came and visited her all the time. They would sing Kingdom melodies on her side of, in her kitchen. So she was like still all vested. She just didn't see.
She would dial in sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and do it that way as opposed to getting all dressed up to go.
So pre the Zoom meetings that they have today, she had the old school phone tap where she could get in there. Okay.
My dad would dial in from time to time, especially once he got more ill after 2012.
Okay. And were you guys exposed? So were you all kind of fading, but yet still exposed maybe to the messaging as they were on the phone? Was that, a private thing that they did? Or was that in the living room or something?
No, I mean, thankfully, like our living situation, they had their own space in the house to kind of still keep themselves, have their own independence in a way while still having us close. So they were able to kind of make it happen like within their own space and not necessarily have to have it commingling, and they also, though, I mean, at least for me, and I'm sure probably for Lexi too, I mean, they were very respectful, I think, of just the fact that, we as a family weren't necessarily going down that route. So like, while it would come up in conversation sometime, it wasn't like, them trying to like force it down our throats or anything. It just was kind of like a general messaging, but still like understanding, and just kind of went through our lives with us as like their grandchildren.
Right.
Well, that's nice. So it sounds like there was not only a somewhat of a physical boundary, just in that they had their own part of the home, but it sounds like, and sadly, this is kind of rare. It sounds like they actually respected your autonomy to decide how you all were going to live your lives.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It was super respectful from that standpoint, both ways. From us helping care for them, they were very appreciative of that, and they loved having the girls here and being able to interact with them. At one point, Gabrielle was basically their private chauffeur to take them everywhere, and Alexandra would speak Italian with my dad and get a download every day from him, and they would watch TV shows together. So, and again, other dynamics that had happened previous with my parents and being estranged from their other children, I just really think like they weren't going to do anything to estrange us from them.
Yeah, because I was going to say we were very close with grandma and grandpa. Like just coming with living together, it's going to happen. But like we made time to make sure that we like had outings with them, went to lunch. Took time to, when we got home, to speak with them, tell them about our day, hear about their day. I can still hear like grandma like yelling to grandpa that dinner's ready, and then he's like, what? And she's like, what? It's like we were a very close-knit family, but somehow we're very lucky, I think, you and I, because you guys grew up with it, but it was very loosely tied into our lives. Like we didn't develop that belief system, because I think we were just really lucky that they wanted us to grow and become, self-minded and have our own way of thinking. Both our parents, and I think grandma specifically, probably wanted that for us. Grandpa maybe just didn't try too hard to pose that onto us, but I think he knew that was up for you guys to handle.
And I think some of it came down to like the core value, like because they didn't necessarily grow up in the truth, that was something that came to them later in life. The core value of family being more important really kind of started to show through in that sense.
Okay. Well, yeah, they're I mean, that's, family should be important, and it should be normal and natural for that to take precedence, but that's just not how it typically works. Lexi and Gabby, you two have referenced a few times just how some of the beliefs or the cultural aspects of it, the way that you're taught to be a little bit different, maybe did show up in your lives. What was that specifically? Like, how did you all feel like it did show up in your life?
It really kind of, I think it starts like when you're younger. So because we were more involved when we like first started going to school and stuff, you have those aspects. And to kind of reference back to my dad's podcast, and some of it might not have been the normal. I did listen.
She re-listened.
I re-listened.
Yes.
Some of it might not have been the norm within, you know, the JW community. Like when we would go to school, like we would still stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We wouldn't go through the actions, you know, like, you know, your hand on heart or anything, but we would still stand, you know, show the respect to, you know, just show the respect. So it's things like that. We didn't necessarily participate in specific holiday traditions, but our teachers were very understanding and they would try and come up with alternatives so that way we could still be involved in the class. When I was younger, it did start with like the actual removal from class, but as I got older and progressed through, which helped Lexi because then you had teachers, our teachers didn't rotate a lot. So them having experienced it with me and a couple others around my age, they, for the younger generations, were kind of able to make some adjustments. Where we would then have alternative activities that still allowed us to be involved in the classroom and interact with our fellow students versus being removed without having the like holiday specific aspect. Right. So kind of going through that was a major part, not being able to interact and be involved in some of the larger activities. Like, you know, we have a small community here in town. Yeah. So like we have, you know, parades like Memorial Day parades and stuff like that, that everyone kind of gathers around and gets involved with that we weren't able to do for, you know, a larger period of time.
That literally at that time went right by our house.
Yes. Yeah, that time.
Oh, wow.
Because we lived on the main road at that time before we moved. And I think even as we got older and as we faded away, some of those just kind of stuck with us because at that point it was kind of a habit. It just was something that you developed.
It was our normal.
Yeah. So like, even as I got older into high school and stuff, like, you know, Pledge of Allegiance, listening to the national anthem, like to this day, I might not, you know, necessarily put my hand over my heart, but I still stand there, you know, I still listen. I kind of interact with it more than I necessarily did when I was younger. You know, it has a bit more meaning now. But it's definitely habits that have kind of, like Lexi said, became our norm as we got older.
See, because what's funny about the whole Pledge of Allegiance and like the national anthem and stuff, what's funny is I still don't participate in those now, but for a different reason. But I say this, and I said this in a lot of my UConn application stuff in my policy autobiography back in my classes, because being political and being politically active is a big no-no in JWs. They want you to be very hands-off. I'm sure they would maybe want you to be like, yeah, maybe try to push towards our beliefs and policy, but like even then they really don't want you interacting with it. So I had a really blank slate in terms of political ideology going into like high school, which was very formative for me in creating core principles and seeing the people who I cared about being affected in these different ways. And I just remember going to Girls State.
Oh yeah.
And I remember because Girls State is like a mock government, and it's like I was a junior in high school, and then I went for a week. I went to a post university here in Connecticut. I went to their campus. I dormed there, and I made a ton of friends there. And we created little mock governments. We were trying to see how being politically active and active in your government looked like. And I remember coming home, and we had JWs with my grandmother in their in-law apartment. I remember my mom saying, you don't know, I remember this. Before we went outside, we were in the car, and before we got out, she's like, so there's some JWs over, there's some witnesses. Don't tell them where you're coming from. They can't know where you're coming from. And I just, because it was like, you're not supposed to be doing that. And so now I'm literally going to get my master's in political practice as a social worker, getting my master's in social work. And I think me being so hands off with policy and with that indoctrination when I was younger made me an open book to develop how I believe and how I practice and act now. So it's like, I still don't stand for or hold my heart or say nothing for the Pledge of Allegiance or national anthem, but they're for different reasons. But I wasn't forced to do that, have this blind patriotism when I was younger that I feel comfortable, opposing that now. So I'll give the benefit to JWs for that, for my experience.
Well, sure. It does give you that blank slate. And I'm glad that you've found your path. Right. To express that. That's the important thing. That's what it is to be free, just in relative terms. And so I'm glad that you are free to do that now. So with all of that going on, did that affect your friendships as kids? Did you all have, so obviously you're going to stand apart when you're not doing holidays or whatever with the kids in class and such, but were you all kind of making friends at school and such, or in the neighborhood or anything like that?
Yeah. No,
we had friends.
No, we definitely did. And some of that comes down more to our parents who still wanted us to be involved in like extracurricular activities. So one of my closest friends from back when I was younger is very heavily Christian. Like, her family is very religious. We never really imparted that on each other. We just, our personalities got along. So we still, and thankfully, we're just very caring people. So we made friends very easily. We got involved in, band and chorus at school. We got to do the plays and everything. So because of those extracurriculars that we still were able to be involved in, we were able to make connections with our fellow classmates and make friends and have, play dates outside of school and things like that. Yeah. So, in that sense, we definitely had a nice, normal upbringing and socialization outside of the Kingdom Hall.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially with our town being so small. Everyone sort of knows each other as well. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I would be going to school with younger siblings of her classmates, everyone was interconnected in that way. And I still had two very close friends for all of my adolescence and my childhood. The same two friends stuck by me even through any JW stuff. I just remember the one weird thing being anything holiday related that came up. So if Christmas was coming or if Halloween was coming around, everyone was talking about their plans and where they're dressing up as and where they're going for vacation. And then we would just have to be the ones to say we're not doing anything and we're not allowed to do anything. But of course, as children, it's oh, but that's all the fun stuff. Why aren't you doing any of the fun stuff? And it's they feel really bad for you. And it's just it's not anything crazy. It's just we just don't. It's like I said before, it's our normal. I remember the birthdays was the one hard thing to explain to people. Yeah. I remember one of my classmates in 3rd grade, he must have asked within the same day, he asked me to come to his birthday party 3 times. 3 times, and I had to tell him every time as a 9-year-old, I'm I don't know why I can't go, but I can't go. He was it doesn't make any sense. And I go, I can't tell you a reason. I just know I can't go. It got to the point he wrote a handwritten letter to give to our teacher for my teacher to give to me as some form of authority to help me go. And I brought it home to you guys, and I was listen, he really wants me to show up. And you were just sorry, sweetie, we can't do that. Yeah.
Well, it's nice.
Honestly, really sweet.
What
was that?
Good. We ruined at least one thing.
But I remember when 16 came around, I was turning 16. You guys were again, I was in the car with Mom. And we were getting off the exit to go to our house. And she was so Dad and I talked. And I think it's okay if you want a 16th birthday party with some friends. And I was real. So we went to the bowling alley, and it was my first time ever in my life getting birthday presents, and it was pretty fun. And it was just it was nice.
Yeah. Well, and that age difference really does kind of show too, in that sense, because
Don't throw that out there so that's why I can say she didn't get. It's okay.
Them going through their experiences, obviously, then kind of translated into different time periods in our lives. Yeah. So having a 4 or 5 year difference between us, like when Lexi turned 16, I was already in college at that point. So like they were further into their experience of kind of pulling themselves away, opening themselves up to these different experiences that they wanted to provide their children. That had kind of already passed me by, but they could then let Lexi experience. So like she got to go through all this stuff of having like, you know, a sweet 16 and really
like a sweet
Yeah.
birthday party.
It's at a bowling alley.
10-year-old going to the bowling alley.
How sweet could it have been next to bowling, bunch of bowlers?
down the line.
We are repressed. We're sorry.
But that is interesting what you're bringing up, because you're having, I mean, there's kind of different eras of your lives, because there were changes being made in the family as time went by. And then of course it's going to affect kids differently because you're at different ages. And so that makes a lot of sense. So let's get into some of the questions that I have. So I have some questions for Dina and Dino, and then as the parents, and then I have some questions for Lexi and Gabby as the kids. But of course, you know, we can all talk about these things. So for you two, Dina and Dino, did you all feel a lot of pressure to raise your kids, quote, you know, in the truth from the beginning? Was that something that really meant a lot to you? And maybe you all even felt differently about it, I don't know. But was that a thing for you guys? And where did the pressure come from, if there was?
That's a really good question.
It is.
He did give you these
Yeah.
questions.
I know. I mean, I feel there was definitely, you know,
I think there was
as
pressure.
the head of the household,
Yeah.
yes, there was a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Some from my parents, maybe, I don't even know, maybe a little bit from your parents at first, but not too long.
Yeah,
Well-
not very much.
Her best friend, probably a fair
Yeah.
amount of pressure
Mhm.
from her, and then our other close friends that also had kids at that same time.
Mhm.
And we're, I think, just supposed to mirror and mimic and parrot everything that they were doing. We had a family in the congregation at the time that their two boys were both 1 year younger than Gabrielle and Alexandra. So, and they were in town, so we would follow each other through all the things at school and all the events. And they were also in the band in the chorus, but and they would actually, because those events were always either on a Tuesday or a Thursday, and they would actually miss the meeting and go to the band or the chorus, which was surprising because he was an elder. But yeah, for sure we were expected to raise them as good little.
Well, you get the pressure from those at the congregation too, anyways, that this is the path and this is how you should raise your children. This is how you were raised. This is how you should continue to raise your family.
For sure.
These are the beliefs
Yep.
that you should be sharing and passing down. And that's not necessarily the route we really want to go.
And I would say even like some of the stuff that the kids were not allowed to do was just to save face.
Yeah.
So that way other people didn't see our kids doing that type of stuff,
Yeah.
even though we may not have even cared a whole lot at that time.
And you don't want to do things in your household out of the respect for the family members that live with you. So you're not going to do real, birthday parties, and you're not going to do Christmas and all that other stuff, even though you may not be attending the hall. Out of respect for the other people that live with you, you don't want to be throwing it in their face that you're just not doing that.
Yeah.
So I think we just continued that path, and it was already something that we were used to not doing anyhow. And I always tell the girls, I love you all year round. I don't have to buy you gifts on any special day. You get stuff all year round. So I don't think we have to pick a day for that.
And then we save a ton of money by buying new costumes every year, other trees.
All the holidays are very stressful when you talk to other people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that, yes, there was a lot of pressure that that's the way you should go and you should raise your children. And I think at some points in time, I can just think about going to the hall with them both being little and thinking it was just crazy. Like, things were crazy. I was maybe working at the time and trying to get home and do dinners and get everybody ready. And we're trying to get out the door to go to the hall. And I really don't want to go and not going to, don't want to go and sit and participate. And I'm tired now, so I could probably nod off at some of the meetings. But, you feel the pressure of having to do all that. Yes.
Yeah, it's tremendous pressure. I remember struggling myself to do all the things that they wanted me to do, and it was just Jenny and I. We didn't have kids, and I remember thinking, like, I have no idea how I would keep up if I had kids. There's just no way. The pressure is so intense, and especially if you're a brother, they want you to do a lot of things in the Kingdom Hall and give you a lot of other busy work. But it's just so much, and then getting the kids ready for the meetings and all the stuff. It's intense. Now, when I was talking about the pressure, you mentioned some external sources of the pressure. Did you all have any internal pressure? Was there a point at which, when you had kids, maybe I guess when Gabby was young or something, like, were there times where you all were at least maybe more mentally in and did feel some internal pressure to reinforce the beliefs that you maybe did still think were true?
Yeah, for sure. We took the school brochure, into school, but also, it's you're constantly fed that their salvation is dependent upon what we're doing as parents. So there was a lot of that, for sure, that we're not doing enough. And on top of that, you had people also telling you that. One of my best friends at the time said that to me at one point, which really, really made me upset. In fact, it may be one of the last times I ever spoke to him. Not because of me. He kind of cut ties with me after that. So then you internalize that. And again, it was probably a lot less for Alexandra than it was for Gabrielle, but there was, we're trying to do all the things at that time and wondering, like, well, when this all goes down, like, hopefully they get a free pass. I don't know.
Sure. Well, that cuts to that fear, right? Jehovah's Witnesses rule by fear. And you're afraid that your kids aren't going to make it and that it's going to be your fault. There's a lot of shame and guilt.
And the Watchtower uses that. Mm-hmm. They know. And they use it as a tool to control us even more. Absolutely.
As they're calling us little enemies of God. They're like, God.
I can't disagree with Stephen on that one. You guys kind of are. You are kind of enemies. I'm just saying, I didn't have gray hair before you two were born.
You also weren't older. It's a bunch of critical thinking here.
No, we don't do that. We were raising a cult, no critical thinking allowed.
So how did it feel then using that critical thinking at different points and going against the pressure? So you had people who were saying these things. You did say that you distanced yourself, like the one brother at the hall, but how did it feel knowing that you were really going against the grain? You're swimming upstream.
Again, this is my perspective. I saw how parents that were doing that and putting all the pressure on their kids to stay as a JW. And when the child wanted to go off and do something else, how it tore the family apart. And again, we weren't there for as much indoctrination as we should have been there for, because we were very inactive at the time. It was very hit or miss, and less as time went forward. And I love these girls and Dina so much that I was like, no, whatever I need to do to keep our family together was that became the most important thing. And then the JW side of things became less important, because I didn't want anything to estrange us from one another. Right. And then going into the teenage years, you have those tensions anyway. Yeah. And I didn't want to multiply the JW part on top of that.
And I think with you having that viewpoint of things and doing however you did things makes it easier for me, because all along for me, it's always been not my favorite thing to do. I'm not a public person. I don't speak in public. I don't like speaking in front of crowds. I very kind of shy and standoffish in that respect. So those things were all part of what you're raised with that I didn't like and I didn't want to do. And if I don't have to go there and do any of that, then that's all good for me. If we're all good with that, then that's even better. Yeah. And
that brings up an interesting question then. So, obviously for you then, you were somewhat processing it through the lens of, I don't have to do this thing that I don't like doing anymore. Was
because some of it is you want to make sure that if my spouse wants to continue doing that I'm being supportive and going, and doing what I can to be part of that. But it was not in my heart all the time to be doing all of that. And it was probably more stressful for me to go there and be part of that than to be and not be.
Yeah.
And at that same time, so there's like there's always more dynamics in play. Her parents were also not very active at this point either. So there was very little external pressure on us to push us back to the Kingdom Hall. Mm-hmm. So we kind of were just like, we had faded pretty much at that point. So it made life easier. Although on the kids, there were still overarching belief systems, put upon them. But
well, it's interesting. A lot of people, through the interviews that I've done and in my coaching practice, talking to people, I find that a lot of people, maybe their parents became Jehovah's Witnesses not long after having a kid, because they were looking for some sort of external structure, or they felt out of control. They were looking for some framework that they thought would be, good for their kids, to teach them morals and things like that. And they maybe went into the organization because of that, and there was a vulnerability there. There's also people who wake up after they have kids because family starts becoming very important at a different level, and it helps them to see, well, do I want to raise my kids the way that I was raised necessarily? Do I want all the pressures put upon them? How do I feel about that? Was that part of it for you guys? Were you all, obviously you were valuing the family highly, but were there things that you thought, well, maybe I don't know about exposing my kids to this?
No, and for me, again, and I think we talked about it. I'm sure we did.
Probably.
We actually looked at a lot of the things that we just wanted them to just have as much of a normal childhood as they could, and do all the things that we couldn't do. We gave them, first off, they were very easy to raise. That they weren't troublemakers in any stretch of the imagination, but also like to be able to date in high school and go to the prom and play sports, and all the things that we couldn't do. Like we just wanted, and to follow higher education for sure, because they were both very good students. And I had seen so many of my friends my age and then a generation younger that graduated as, 4.0s and scholarships, valedictorians, and they did nothing with it. And I'm like, no, these kids, in fact, if there was pressure on them for anything, it was that like to get good grades, to get scholarship. We feel like this is your job in high school, like to perform very well, so that way you have a chance to go on and earn these benefits.
I could definitely understand that. They're having an opportunity that you never had, and you want to provide them the best if you can, the
And
best
it
opportunities that you
was-
can.
I think for both of us, a lot of us living
Yes.
our teenage years, our youth through our kids.
Yes.
Which
Well-
can we say we did not have crazy youth either. We
No.
were not out late at night partying
No.
when in high school. We weren't
No.
doing any sort of thing that was illegal, which is like if it's
But that's good.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Full honesty here. No, we were little angels
Yeah.
in that sense. We had our issues elsewhere, but
I mean, yeah, I would say like if you were to look at the population that we went to school with, yeah, we would probably be considered, the ones that everyone would call, your goody two shoes.
Yeah.
Like, going above and beyond. And like,
yeah.
Well, Gabrielle had to deal with Dina's best friend that worked at the school that she was at.
Yeah.
So she couldn't get away with a whole lot. But like Gab played both. Well, she played varsity tennis for all 4 years. We went to all the matches.
Mhm.
Lexi was involved in so much in high school. We
Yeah.
kept saying every day after school, we were there picking her up at 5 o'clock for
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And
Had a lot.
I'll let her say what group she was in because I don't remember them all. But it ran the gamut from A to Z.
I'll tell you. Okay, so the one is pretty obvious. It was Project Outreach, and we, as a family, we volunteered a lot in our life.
Yeah.
It was something regular from when I was younger that I would say was more apparent, was giving back to your community than any JW practice. And in my opinion, in my mind, that's how I interpret the values instilled in me, which is good job on you guys. So volunteering was very big. I joined Project Outreach in high school, as well as the Interact Club was established while I was in high school, which is like the high school equivalent to Rotary, which my dad was a part of. And then we had Writers Club that I was in. I started the photography club. I was in a school musical. I was minorly into school musical. I wasn't really in it that much. I was in the last 10 minutes. I walked across the stage in some music number, then I walked off.
Hey, you got to be in one, so that's something.
I was in something on stage, you know what I mean? I was in women's chorus for a year, and then we had some arts exhibits that from like student artwork that my work was put up there, so we went to that stuff. So like I was there a lot.
A pride group you were in?
SGA,
Yeah.
straight gay, or SGA was like straight gay alliance. It was literally the word for it, which again is not JW. Shouldn't have known that either, and they didn't. So,
But again, we weren't putting guardrails on what they wanted, on who they were going to be.
Yeah, they got to be in band and chorus all through grade school. Lexi got to be a cheerleader in grade school.
Played soccer.
Played
Played
soccer.
She was goalie for a minute.
So it was all kinds of stuff
Giant
that they got to
clubs.
do, even
huge clubs,
from
yeah.
a younger age up through high school.
I mean, that's fantastic. On the flip side of that, being able to have your kids participating in things and feeling like they, like you said, don't have guardrails necessarily, did that, because I know a lot of ex-JW parents that I talk to struggle at times because there are things that they have to parents around that were just never even options, when you were Jehovah's Witnesses, and things that come up in life, whatever those things may be. Were there things that came up for you that were maybe even challenging for you too? Like, oh, I don't know my feelings on this. I've never experienced this myself, and I don't know what to do here.
Yeah, there was always, the first boyfriends and dates and going to prom or other firsts that happen that you find out about. But we just talked about it as a couple, and we worked our way through it. There were people that weren't JWs, and this is, just a fact of life. There were people that had children that weren't JWs that maybe I'd asked advice to, or their experience with things. And the answers they gave me, I was like, well, that's no good. I'm not using that either.
On your kids.
So, you pick something
Pick your battles
in the middle.
something maybe more down the middle, or that you gave them the best guidance that you could have, and they're going to make the best decision that they can at that time with the way that you've raised them, and you hope for the best.
I mean, I'm sure there are things in life that you just are like, no, at this age, I don't feel that that's appropriate, even whether you're JW or not, and you instill that in your child. And I think we did pretty good as far as maybe we did have some boundaries or guidelines that weren't even related to JW, more of just.
And we're probably a
Basic
little,
principles.
a little more
I got
conservative.
you. I got you.
We're probably more conservative than maybe some others because of that, because you know, those purse strings were still hard to let go of. I remember specifically, and Lexi talks about this all the time with the Halloween thing.
Go ahead.
No, I'll let you tell it.
You tell it.
You tell it better than I did.
Your words.
I don't remember exactly what I said.
Oh, but I do. So,
I said he made an impression.
Yes.
oh my God. So
I just know I was not in favor of this.
Dad does not like Halloween generally. So
generality. I'm prefacing with that Dad does not like Halloween regardless. It's not his favorite holiday. He would love if it would just go away probably. But of course there are, you know, other reasons to dislike Halloween or not be a part of it. Through JWs, I just remember Grandma talking about it's when the demons are let out and people don't know who's who. And I was like, okay. But so I remember my two friends, the same two friends that I was with throughout my adolescence. They wanted to go to a haunted house, and that's a very normal thing to want to go to for people who are not GWs. And I remember asking my mom.
Yes, it is.
And I remember asking my mom, and she was like, "I would run that by your father." And I was like, I didn't want to ask him for this very reason.
I love that. I use that line a lot.
Yeah,
I would run that by your dad.
And so he was sitting in that chair right over there. And I like knelt down and I was like, "Hi, Daddy." And I told him what I wanted to do. And he like is processing it. And he goes, "I trust that you will make the right choice." And those were his words.
I think I might have said, like, I think you know how I feel about Halloween.
I think you might have said that. And you were like, but I trust that you will make the right choice. Of course, his right choice might have been different from what I thought would have been the right choice. But that was code for no, don't go to that.
So
Honestly, I think that's
put on her costume and left. Thanks, Dad.
No, I was, again, the goody two shoes because we don't like to cause issues. I didn't go and I just told my friends it is what it is. Because that was the normal. It's like I wouldn't have been getting anything that I had before. I wouldn't be losing anything. It'd be the same stuff. So it's like not a big deal. But the one thing that I think was made harder for me, dating was not easy. I know Gabby had boyfriends that she told about to mom and dad.
Yeah.
I didn't like to talk about my dating life with mom and dad. It's like I didn't like to do that. I did tell you about my first high school boyfriend was Sam. And I told you guys about him and he was a good guy. And I was like, there's no issue showing you guys to him. But like whatever crushes in like middle school, I was like, I can't tell you guys this. Daddy doesn't like boys.
There was a couple. I can't remember his name though. Wasn't the kid from the farm?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't want to put out too many names out there.
It's your name out there.
But
Kid from the farm. What farm?
they're in Portland. But like he had his thing with his mom. But like for me, I was very nervous.
It certainly did.
Very nervous to talk about my dating life with my parents. It was something I tried to avoid at all costs. To even let them know I was with somebody. I didn't want to let them know.
Was that a JW thing or just a father thing?
A father thing.
Oh,
It's like how much of it is you being like you're supposed to be this innocent girl because as an JW. I don't know how much of that is part of it, but
I don't know how you can really call dating if you're in grade school over there. And you can't go when you're there without asking, you have controls for dating.
Your hands at recess, you're dating. That's what it means.
well, and I think that as you all are talking about that, it really shows that there's not. I think maybe it was Dina who said it a minute ago, but just about things came up and you all would just think about. Try to talk about it and then try to talk to the kids. There's not always a right or a wrong. There's options.
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses teach that everything is black or white, all or nothing, right or wrong. You're righteous or you're wicked. You're going to live or you're going to die. And that's it. And everything is held at that level. So it is hard for a lot of parents who come from a very all or nothing perspective, righteous or wicked. It's very hard to live in the gray and to realize that there's a lot of options out there, and there's a lot of different ways to do things, and they don't have to be right or wrong. They're just different choices. They have different outcomes, and if you don't like the outcome, make different choices next time. It's learning, and that's how you grow. And so for the kids, for Lexi and Gabby, see, how do I ask this? Could you all see at times that you were asking maybe your parents about something, or something was coming up? You mentioned like watching your parents process something. Like, were there things that you would like that came up that you could tell that they were kind of struggling to figure out what the right path might be, or what their opinion even might be on it? Because I mean, you have to see at times that you know your parents are human by seeing that.
Do you?
Could you see the dissonance or the struggle internally, the internal conflict at all?
It's hard. I think it's kind of hard to say. I think a lot of times too, I think they kind of tried to like in that moment, especially with Lexi. Lexi was like, she's a very more outgoing person. So like she'll walk up to them and she'll ask a question and like kind of wait. Wait for an answer. Just like she's not afraid to just kind of be like, okay, like she's very confident in herself. And you know, if she wanted to do something, especially because she had less exposure, she would kind of go up and be like, this is what I want to do, and like kind of wait for an answer and like be like, okay, like, whereas I think I saw it like, I know that it was going to take a little bit longer to necessarily get an answer. And so I typically tend to approach it by presenting, you know, what, you know, I kind of wanted to talk to them about.
Your 10-page PowerPoint of why.
There were flip charts.
Yeah.
There were flip charts.
And then let them process it and come back to me later with a response.
The pros and cons list. And
So I didn't necessarily get a lot of like, you know,
possible results.
Flow charts.
I didn't see a lot of the processing going on. I kind of let them do that.
You did the processing yourself, and you said
Session goes on over here. Gabriel's way over there somewhere. Yeah.
I'll await your reply. Sincerely.
Yeah.
It was in an email.
if I'm not available, you can contact my superior. But I guess I just like didn't know what the issue was, because like I guess it's just like, yeah, if you have a question, you ask it and they tell you what they think and then you move on, you know. Like I think maybe you're more intuitive in that sense of their reluctance for certain things.
Well, and growing up in it a little bit more, I think I just kind of I was a bit more aware of the fact that, you know, the decisions and stuff that we're kind of, you know, our experiences that we're going through now are not going to be the same as what they went through. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to make a decision. And, you know, it's not going to be a simple answer kind of thing.
Yeah. And for me, it's just like, if I have a question, like there's only two people to ask, and where else would I go? It just makes more sense just to lay it out. And I guess that was just my perspective.
I think it also depended upon like what your age was and what the topic was, because at some point in time, when we weren't going to the hall or anything anymore, then it was a little easier for certain things that are a lot easier to answer.
Yeah.
When I joined this club, I have no problem with that.
Can I be active in school, Mom? Why wouldn't you say yes?
Yes. So, I mean, there are other things that I'm sure that require a lot more detail or discussion about them.
I'm sure there were things I went to Gabby to instead at some point, and I was like, the older sister bond.
But Lexi, you know, she had that where like, you know, she was going through a similar situation I've already been through. Then, you know, she had me to kind of come to for advice to be like, what's the better way to approach this? Yeah.
It's like, what failed for you that I can avoid?
Basically. But I think that's a very normal thing in life.
That's regular parent. Yeah.
That is, as the oldest, I have younger siblings. I got to ask questions, so I get it. So it shows, you know, that not only so there's different scenarios. This is all very complex, right? You have different scenarios. You're at different ages. Gabby, you were exposed to witness culture more heavily, and so maybe you knew that there were certain things that were going to have to be thought through, and maybe that's why you came in with the flow charts or the whatever, the PowerPoint, because you were trying to make those arguments preemptively and help them to process as you were, trying to go at it, because it is, at the end of the day, you're all just human beings and you're trying to figure out all this stuff, and there aren't always right and wrong answers. So it is a negotiation at times. It is a discussion and trying to figure out where everybody stands with the thing, because it's just not easy. This is difficult, but it's okay to do difficult things. And it sounds like you all were doing your best to make it through those difficult things. So with that in mind, were there any fears, Dino and Dina, did you all ever have any of those feelings? I mean, I think it's normal for parents, period, but coming from the cult background, do you have, to have self-doubt as a parent, to think, am I doing this right? Because I know I hear that from a lot of people too. So did you all ever have any of those fears?
I think that's always there, but you're just not sure. You just want your kids to grow up and, like everybody says, that old saying, make the right decisions and make their way in life the right way without having a lot of problems, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I didn't have a lot of self-doubt about, because at this point, we were pretty much completely faded, and I would make it a point whenever I did run into, JWs, to brag about them and all the things that they were doing and how, and just to kind of like show them, like, no, you don't need to be in your little cocoon of the cult over here to raise good kids, that we can raise good kids that are successful and outgoing and loving, without fear of imminent death at any moment, guiding their principles in life. You worry just in general. I still worry. Alexandra was driving, back from her partner's house today, and you worry, like, is she okay? Did something happen? So that never goes away, no matter what age they are. But there wasn't a lot of self-doubt, I don't think. And in fact, we were probably, at least I was anyway, more proud of the fact of the type of people that they were becoming outside of all the cult conditioning that we had, that we dealt with growing up.
Right.
I mean, we grew up in the 80s, we both grew up in the 80s. It was, Armageddon was any second now. We were not going to finish high school. We finished high school, and then we weren't going to get through our 20s. The world was, so, and we missed out on a lot of stuff that, we didn't pursue a lot of things that I don't know if we would have pursued or not. But we weren't given the option. And I wanted them to have all the options on the table.
And you want to encourage them to have an open mind about everything, which you don't really get growing up as a witness. This is the way you're supposed to think, but we raised our girls to have open minds about everything. They look at
too many things.
The big picture. Oh my goodness. They look at the big picture of everything, and they can reason for themselves, basically, and be adults and make smart decisions.
But it's great.
I think, and I love bragging about that,
Oh,
because I think they've done really well. I mean, of course, things could have went in a total opposite direction, but they also could have went in an opposite direction raising them as a witness child too, because there are plenty of examples of that. So
because they're their own people.
That's right. And they can make their own decisions as they grow up. And
we love, at least I do, being able to tell them, we we couldn't do that when we were kids, or we weren't allowed to watch that TV show or that movie,
Right.
or we have no experience with that because, raised in a cult.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like then some of the ways that you either got past the fear or maybe just preempted any of those fears. It sounds like you all were really focused. Your focus was less on what am I doing wrong and more on how is this manifesting in a way where I've got gratitude, what my kids are doing right. I'm appreciative of the opportunity to raise them in a different way and to give them those opportunities and to have gratitude for that. And it sounds like focusing on that and having that gratitude and just actually being proud of your kids, which is something that very few Jehovah's Witness kids ever really get from their parents, because they're proud of you for making ministerial servant in the congregation or something, but it's not who you are. It's just you've unlocked level 2 of this weird game that you're playing. It's not who that kid is as a human being. And you all were trying to let your kids be themselves and appreciate them for who they were, which I would imagine if the focus is more on them and less on yourself as the parents, maybe you would have less fear around all of that.
Yeah, because what it's sounding like is that you guys remembered how you felt with your pressure growing up and who to become and who people wanted you to be, that you didn't want us feeling that because you didn't like feeling that yourselves, is what it sounds like. So you wanted us to just have the freedom and the space to take up to become who we wanted to be.
We talk, Mike and I talk about this all the time in coaching, and it's a theme that runs probably through 99.99999% of every podcast, whether it's been on his show or other stories I've heard, is that no matter what we did, it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And I wanted you guys to know that everything that you did was good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless of what it was, because I didn't want you to feel that way. That being made to feel that way is terrible.
Yeah, nobody wants to feel that way.
Yeah, it's a heavy burden to carry.
As parents, you guys also have to recognize that making us feel like we're good enough shows that you guys are good enough too.
Yes.
Because you've given us probably more, as a kid, you don't really know necessarily what to ask for in life. You don't know what, until you get older, you're like, and you experiences other people's lives and, their interactions with their families and how they grew up. Just having someone, that's there for you and is always pushing to, give you everything that you want and, bring the best out of you as a person, makes you guys just amazing parents too.
Because children are completely reliant on the people in their lives who have already figured it out to teach them where to go, right? It's like we are, as children, we're just little blobs ready to be molded. And to see, obviously, they're talking so highly of who we've become, but like who made that, right? Like who sculpted these people? And it's these ones, these people. They did that.
Aww. And they did that not to vilify or demonize your parents. They were doing the best they could with what they had as well, Dino and Dina. But you all didn't have any healthy modeling for how to do this in freedom without the constraints of the doctrines of Jehovah's Witnesses and things like that. So whatever you all did was all you. It was you two coming up with these things and working through these things and probably fighting through these things. I don't mean with each other, but just internally at times. That takes a lot of courage to do with your own kids. And
while we didn't lose our immediate, our immediate family, we lost friendships. We lost people that we were close to along the way, even when we were just faded or inactive. And there were times when Dina and I were like, we have no friends. Like, there's nobody to go out with, no one to have dinner with tonight. There's like
each other.
Well, yeah. But like we had no social circle. That dramatically changed and we found a new social circle. But that was something we had to work at as well.
Well, yeah. And then that also, as you all work on building your new life, your new social circles, that exposes your kids to new people as
Yeah.
well, and perhaps expands their experiences and who they're around, instead of just being around Jehovah's Witnesses all the time, who are, well, they have their own individual personalities, somewhat carbon copies in certain ways, at least as far as how they see the world, their beliefs, a lot of the opportunities they've been exposed to in life as far as education or career. So this way, your kids get to have a wider base of opportunity to pull from.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say like the place where we're at now as a family is like completely, probably a very different image than where they might have thought we'd be today. Because our dad is in the kitchen with, the rest of us, talking about like, I saw this from the JWs, and it's just like, I'm so happy that we're not there, like that's not us right now, and that we can just be who we are and be happy as a family. And we talk about everything under the sun, from like policies to social issues, to things that are different in other countries, to people in our lives who are different and who are happy to have, involved with us. And it's just like, we're a really wonderful, okay family, like despite what people might have thought from the beginning of being raised as JWs, like we are great. We're perfectly fine where we are.
Yeah, look at the diversity of conversations that you can have now, instead of just, hey, I like that point they brought out in the Watchtower at the Sunday meeting.
Yeah.
You all can have these diverse conversations about anything in the world that you want.
Yeah. And everything under the sun, from comedy and entertainment, movies, TV shows, to social issues and political stuff. And with, both Gabrielle and Dina are in healthcare, so they talk about work stuff and issues that come up in the healthcare field. And Lexi's in social work and DCF and different things that she's already seen with in that world, and me swinging a hammer. But I listen to podcasts nonstop, and then like something I listened to or learned in a podcast. And
he's super self-informed. Like education never stops for anybody. Like schooling, like formal schooling should not be the end of someone's education. And this guy understands that. And like every day is a new opportunity for him to continue learning something. So it's like he has his own full personalized, like, I don't know.
I have my own degree in listening to podcasts.
Well,
he's very knowledgeable about stuff that like probably people would have learned if going to college, but like he's doing it himself, and it's possible, and it's very impressive.
And we don't always agree on stuff too.
Sure.
Some, like last week we were like, it wasn't like a knockdown drag out, but we had a very separate opinion about something. We were both like, Alexi's like, stop shutting me down.
You can't trust me.
Because you were wrong.
And that's not the perspective you should go into a conversation with.
Nobody's judging on their opinion, is that it? Which is fine. You can have different opinions. See?
Isn't that fun though, to be able to agree to disagree?
Yeah.
To be able to see things differently, and to realize that we're all going to see things differently based on where we come from. I mean, you talk about having a worldview. A person in Haiti sees life much differently than a person in Russia, much differently than a person in the United Kingdom or here in the States or whatever. We all have different things that we're around. We have different experiences, different environments, and it informs who we are and how we see the world. And it's great that even in a family, you all can have that. You don't have to see things exactly the same, and yet, because it's not the Tedesca cult, right? You all get to be your own individuals in it.
Yeah. Well, we don't want other members though. Well, besides it's Derek and Harper. But,
right.
Yeah.
So let's talk then about a little bit of that freedom. So going to the questions for Lexi and Gabby now. So your dad exercised his freedom to tell his story on the podcast. And so my guess is, while you probably knew some of it, you may not have known all of it, and particularly in one nice package like that, where it's just kind of gone through So were there things, how did it feel to listen to your dad's story? And was there anything that stood out to you guys?
It was a lot that I didn't know, honestly. You think obviously like you as growing up, your parents can't tell you everything about them because it's not something that you can comprehend at whatever age. So there was a lot that was untold to me, I'm sure to you as well. Yeah. I didn't realize how integrated you were, how involved you were, because you weren't as involved by the time that like I could understand our participation in it. So there were things that I was surprised with how well he could step back and be so not indifferent to JWs in terms to us, but like wanting to like make sure we had the opportunity to just be whoever, that he was able to do that because of how he was just so integrated. I was like, wow, that takes like a lot of unlearning and it takes a lot of strength to be able to like let that go and let us be us. So I was very, very surprised to hear how involved he was when he was younger.
Yeah, I think the initial part, it was nice to kind of hear, like, as we've grown up and gone into like our later years, we are a much more open family with each other. Like we talk about what we're all experiencing, how we're all feeling, and we have a bit stronger communication in that sense. But that's more recent. So to hear about, you know, his previous experiences and just kind of get a new perspective on kind of what he had gone through, that was certainly enlightening. And then also to kind of be able to connect the dots and put pieces together, you know, kind of knowing stuff that we had gone through and to see where that kind of originated from and have a bit more understanding behind it, a bit more background to maybe some decisions that were made, you know, experiences that we have gone through and where that kind of all came from.
So it's context. Sounds like you all got a lot of context out of that. I don't know why I'm just asking the kids. What about you, Dina? Not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. Did you learn anything from Dino's episode? Like, were there things that, I mean, I'm sure you guys have talked about a lot of things, but I mean, were there things that stood out to you? I mean, you don't have to come up with a specific, but just how was it to hear his story?
Should listen to it again.
Honestly,
the freshest memory of it.
It really should be once a week required listening.
I think it was just nice to be able to hear him voice the way he felt all that time and be able to have that freedom to do that and then express why he wanted to separate as he did and the way he did it. I mean, it's just always been, I don't even know how to, I mean, we talk about things, but I think that's just something that gave him an outlet to express even more the way he felt.
No, because I'm going to say, I think how he speaks about himself and his memories and the transformation he's gone through really like skyrocketed him talking about that once he was introduced to you and talked to you and did the podcast and had your coaching. Like he's really opened up about a lot of stuff. And he talked about like you put it on the shelf and then you wait to address it on the shelf later. And then the shelf's too heavy and it just, you got to all let it get handled at one point. He like was way more open, at least to me, about he's really honest with all of us to talking about his experiences that were maybe hard for him to talk about before. And so I learned a lot about him within the last like 2 years alone that I've never heard of before.
I think it is way more open now in discussions about it.
Yeah.
That when things come up or things that he hears that it just is part of the conversation. And it's definitely a more open conversation. I just think that it was probably maybe at some time not really what you felt you should talk about, maybe, you know, before. Like,
we were certainly told that, weren't we?
Yeah.
And you just didn't want to upset the apple cart and tip it over and make, you know, you didn't know which way it was going to go.
Applesauce on the ground.
Because, you know, I think all those years of going and it's like, okay, does he really want to go? Do I really want to go? Is he thinking, do I really want to go? I mean, but now you get to the point where you put it all out there and that's the way you felt and shared it with everybody and just made it known, made your stand, you know?
Yeah, well, and there's something about being vulnerable and putting your story out and owning your story, whatever it is, and then having other people view your story or listen to your story and then rather than what the witnesses would do, which would be to condemn your story and to say you don't feel that way and be dismissive, to actually have people say, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I now understand you better. I now, to be known and to feel like you belong through your story as you tell it and other people receive it well. It's very empowering. And it's one of the things that I always like to say is in AA, they often say you're only as sick as your secrets. And I think there's a beauty to taking your secrets and to being able to express them. We've seen that through various social movements or whatever the case may be, where people have been able to talk about what happened to them and feel the power that they're not alone, because there's solidarity with all these other people who've been through a similar thing, and then to really allow them to process and deep dive into how this affects us all. I think that that's great that he got to do that. I'm glad that it gave him a voice, even outside the podcast, to be more himself and to talk about those things. It's just important to be able to do those things for ourselves. Allow me to break in here for a second. This channel is made possible by you, the listener. If you appreciate what we're doing here, please consider supporting at patreon.com/shunned, or leave a review on iTunes or other platforms. Like and subscribe. All those things help the channel. If you're looking for merch, you can go get some Shun swag from the shunnedpodcast.com website, or reach out there to be on the show. If you're looking for more ex-Jehovah's Witness content, I'll recommend my first podcast called This JW Life. You can find that on podcast apps as well as YouTube. And if you're feeling stuck in life, struggling to find happiness and community, maybe you're haunted by the past, beating yourself up, unsure of who you are or what you even want out of life now that you've lost this one identity that was given to you by a cult, reach out through my other sites like exjwhelp.com, that's exjwhelp.com, or storyworkscoaching.com. And let's see about working together to help you find a life that fits you and who you are, maybe for the first time ever. And now, back to our guest. So, Gabby and Lexi, we'll talk about some specific aspects, but just in general, how do you guys feel about Jehovah's Witnesses today?
Well, I think Lexi has a much stronger opinion than I probably do.
Yesterday.
I think for me, it's just kind of something I've let go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't really necessarily have a strong opinion one way or another. Like, they are who they are. And, we've come away from that and we've built an amazing life and, got to become who we are. And, we don't really have much interaction anymore, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of something like for me, I just kind of be able to let fade and kind of disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think I've been maybe more influenced by, again, my dad's story and the way that he feels about them now, for sure. Of course, we all have very strong empathy, I feel. That was something that was really ingrained growing up, was to care about other people. A quote, how you treat people matters, right? So I think just him talking about like the things that he's discovered, with like clarity after leaving, and then seeing how that fits into how, again, my just regular principles. I don't have an issue for people who want to practice religion in any way, as long as you're not imposing it or using it to hurt other people. That's the biggest thing. I don't care if you want to go to your room and pray at night or go to church on Sunday, and if it makes you feel happy and makes you feel fulfilled in whatever way that gives you some purpose, that's perfectly fine. Once it's used as a tool or as a way to hurt other people or control other people, that's when it's a really big issue. And just hearing how common and really big that is with JWs, how people, again, are shunned out of their families after, complete loss of support system, complete loss of everything they knew, and they have to start from ground zero with no one to help them, no one there to advocate for them, to show them that they matter. It's just, none of it sounds good. I'm not I will not, I said earlier that the only thing I credit them with is me being like hands off on like policy and like other ideology growing up that made me very malleable to develop that later. But that's the only thing that I have good to say about it, there's just so much that people cover up. But that's with Christianity in general as well, with like the child sexual abuse, how bad that is, how often it gets covered up. And again, the 2 witness rule of like, if 2 witnesses weren't there for it, if they don't confirm it, then it didn't happen, you know. And just different ways that it's used to manipulate people and deceive and protect those who are in power. It's a big theme that overarches across too many systems that needs to be addressed and taken care of. And they're just an example of people who are not doing it right.
Sure. You know, at the end of the day, everybody who's involved in it, they're just human beings that oftentimes the reality is they mean well in their messaging. They think that they're helping other people, but what they don't realize is that some of the actions, some of the teachings are very, very, very destructive in the lives of the people around them. So let's just talk about a few of those. I know you brought up a little bit, but what about shunning? How do you guys feel about the concept of institutionally forced shunning?
It's awful. I mean, that's just like the basic, you know, it's like the basic interpretation of like what this person who you're supposed to, and not necessarily unconditionally, people still need to be held accountable if they make mistakes, if they do things wrong. But these people that you grow up with and you love and you raise as your family, and you're supposed to treat with care and with dignity, and this, as soon as they disagree with you on this matter, that's it, and you're not allowed to see them, and they can't make their way back in or make up for it in any way. It's just, it's not forgiving in any way.
And it's not like those persons did something major.
Right.
They committed murder. They didn't, you know what I mean?
They're allowed to not.
They're living life in a good way, and yet they're still treated.
When they didn't do anything to you.
Right.
The person doing the shunning, if I fornicate, how in the world did I hurt you? You know, I didn't do anything to you. So you know, it's just that they take it very personally and then enforce these harsh, rigid beliefs upon others in a really austere, awful way.
Like ostracizing people who just don't want to be involved in that anymore, and then all of a sudden they just lose everything. It's
yeah.
And as we've talked, it just makes things worse.
Yeah.
For no good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Life is messy enough and hard enough as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And to put that on a family dynamic, I've seen it with, again, this family that was in our congregation, that their sons are a year behind them, and the oldest son left the JWs and they don't speak to him.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever, she's just making things so much heartache and anguish for no good reason. Why put yourself? How is any of that loving?
Right.
Why
put yourself through that? Because you're losing something too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Nope. I haven't seen my family since 2015. And that's just how it is. That's what they do. You referenced it earlier, Lexi, a little bit, but you know, there are people that I work with in my coaching practice at times that I am literally the only person that they speak to. I am the only person. They have no one. They are on an island, dropped off, like, you know, in a foreign land, you know, as someone who doesn't speak the language. They don't have anybody. Everything and everyone has been stripped of them. And it's just really, really sad.
It's not good.
Nobody should have to feel that way.
It's like that. That's a form of like trauma that nobody deserves trauma in general, but just being told that everything, like you wanting to step away from this belief and go and lead something that's different, that you feel is truer to yourself, and being told that you're wrong for doing that you're going to be condemned to hell for doing that, and we're going to completely leave you there and give you no way to come back and no way to be forgiven. It's just, that's some treatment that nobody deserves.
And because they've never made friends outside of, it makes it even harder, because now you're trying to make friends on the outside that you've never had that opportunity to do or even know how to do.
Right.
Yeah.
While being in a position of weakness and desperation.
You're essentially being told you're not good enough. You know, everyone that you relied upon, you know, has now just, left you and abandoned you because
Right.
you don't align with them anymore.
Right. You finally do something that like you feel is courageous and brave
Right.
and is a risk that will hopefully benefit yourself because you feel this is something true to you, and then you just get completely dropped.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's say I
Now-
have, oh, sorry, Mike.
Go right
Let's
ahead,
say I have even spoken, considering the or the field of study that she's going into,
Mhm.
how these extremely or extremist indoctrination of children possibly could, constitute child abuse
Mhm.
with these things.
Yeah.
Because one of the commercials with the fun little catchy song it was honestly kind of catchy, but the animation that went with it of them going to assembly and like seeing all these people
Oh,
from
yes.
the world, and it's supposed to be so fun, and then in their notes they're like writing notes and drawing pictures of like everything dying, and that's just something that to them is expected, and they're like 10 years old, and this is the future that they're being told is evident, is like inevitable. And how are you instilling hope? How are you instilling a reason to grow for children if you're just showing them that doomsday is coming and everyone's going to be gone anyway?
Yeah, a lot of kids have memories of the Bible storybook, or a lot of adults today have, those images burned into their brains of these awful things that were going to happen. And it's just, kids should be playing with their toys and their friends or whatever. They don't need to be worried about the end of the world at 5 years old. That's just not healthy. Speaking of not healthy, another thing that often comes up in discussions is, and I think you mentioned it earlier again, was the two witness rule. And it's not just that rule exists, it's that my contention has always been, why are they even adjudicating these matters anyway? This is criminal. You have no jurisdiction to, as elders in the congregation, to be handling murder cases or child abuse cases. That's not in your purview and is way above your pay grade. But what about, that two witness rule, or the way that what of how they handle such things in their midst? Do you have any feelings on that?
Because you told me about the two witness rule at first, and I thought it was kind of ridiculous. I understand wanting people to be informed of what's going on, but they use it as a barrier to keep things that are important from reaching the actual authorities who are supposed to take care of it. Like, again, that's one of the ways where I was talking about, like, it's a tool to control people. And there's no other reason that the two witness rule should exist. There's no reason for it to exist except for their purpose of controlling what happens and what gets let out. Because there are things that happen that they don't want people finding out about, and they use that as a way to keep it under wraps.
Yep, absolutely. And unfortunately, it happens a lot, doesn't it? I know, Dino, you keep up on, there's all the lawsuits that are going on. The Pennsylvania Attorney General is investigating the witnesses. There's just so many different, the Australian Royal Commission is the most probably well-known example of this. There's just countless kids. And I knew kids. I know people that I grew up with that had things happen to them. And they've even been on the podcast and nothing was ever done. And sometimes in really sad instances, it's all sad, but even where, we're talking someone that had done something before, did it again, and it doesn't, but there weren't two witnesses to this particular incident, so we're not going to take it seriously. And that's just, it's just unconscionable to, how can you claim to be a religion guided by love and to not love your kids who are in it, the most vulnerable among you? It's really sad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you all have this one, discouraging education? So the witnesses really, there's talks where I think it was Toni Morris said that the better the school, the more dangerous it is for these young minds. So, being two young, educated individuals, what do you think about their discouragement of education?
education's a human right. Please
Yeah.
let people go to school. It teaches you to critically think. It teaches you the history that is ugly that you got to know in order to move forward better. And these are things that, like, in our personal lives, our parents are there to teach us about our history and how to move forward better. But in terms of the grander picture, like, formal institutions can still, as an institution, become better and better teach children. But there's too many things going on where schools are getting further controlled to restrict what kind of information they teach, and that's the problem in and of itself that's separate from JWs. But that can be a different podcast. but school is supposed to be a place where you're allowed to go in and, like, ask hard questions and, like, get uncomfortable, because history is not kind. And it's a complicated world, and someone needs to help you make sense of it. And schools are a really good way for your population to do that. And I think college was, don't get me wrong, high school was very helpful.
Yeah.
Gave me the basics, but I think college was where I really started to expand and understand it more, in a complex way.
Yeah. And I mean, despite, what anyone believes, we're all living in this world right now.
Mhm.
And to be able to successfully navigate it, you need those tools.
Yeah.
I mean, education provides you with many tools to just help you get through life in general, and, outlets that a lot of people don't have. And, we're all living in this world. So yeah, to be deprived of those, just you're physically intentionally making it harder for someone.
Mm-hmm. In school,
Well, it's not just the tools to make a living.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was
Oh,
gonna say,
sorry.
on a social aspect, it
Yeah,
also
yeah.
provides for that additionally too, so
Yeah.
that you're not living in just this little town,
right.
you're out, you've gone to a bigger school, you've met other people, and
Mhm. Expand your horizons.
yes,
Or the same 80 people at that one building that you go to twice a week.
Yeah. That was me at the end, right? Oh no, you were talking about at the end.
Yeah.
Got it. No, because, like, in my last semester, I literally went to campus twice a week. So it was like, that was my misunderstanding.
Also seeing that, like, you went to college at a very odd time because COVID
yeah,
landed in the middle of it. But, like, the whole arc of being on campus, doing all the campus things, to at the end, just using the school for what you needed to finish your degree,
Mhm, yeah.
and everything in between. It was
Yeah.
neat to see. Gabrielle not talking to us for 4 years when she went to her college.
That's not true.
it might have been the year, maybe the year before and the first year of.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Was there shunning internally in the family?
Yeah, there was.
Separate stuff. Again, our own issues.
Sure.
Typical every high school, I think it's a typical teenage line that,
Yeah.
you're just ruining my life.
You wouldn't get it. You don't get it. You don't
It's
get
not
it.
paid.
It's not paid.
So one of the things that you mentioned was critical thinking, and that's certainly something that I think is one of the reasons that the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses doesn't want you to go to college, because it's not just they don't want you to experience what it is to be around other people and see that they're lying as far as what they tell you everyone else is, but it's also to be able to critically think, to learn how to question things. That in itself, to learn how to question, is very threatening to an organization that doesn't allow you to question and that sees questioning as a threat. So I'm glad that you two got exposure to that, beyond even the tools to have whatever career path you're looking to go into, the tools to just be two individuals now who get to move through this earth and this world for the rest of your lives with the ability to think for yourself. That's certainly something that would be discouraged in the organization.
I also had very particularly radical professors, like in social work specifically, but I was also a part of the honors program. So classes for that were dual taught by 2 professors. And it was a very diverse set of subjects and backgrounds for all of my educators. And they were so, like, foot on the gas on trying to reimagine how things can be done, so I had very radical professors to help with that too. And I'm sure you had your own set of wonderful teachers.
I think also in the times that we live in, just because of, like, the progression our society has made, critical thinking doesn't start at a college level anymore.
Yeah.
It really starts in high school. So you have these children who are being exposed to it anyways, and then being encouraged to not continue down a route that they've already been exposed to, because they don't want them learning, to learn to critically think, but they're already going to start doing it because you're going to get that exposure in the school that you're kind of mandated to go to. Yeah. So it's like, it's almost,
they should.
Right. Well, yes.
Well, you're assuming that they're going to secular schools.
Well,
Yes.
like it's being,
There's a lot of homeschooling going on that's not good for anybody.
Christian schools, Catholic,
Right.
Catholic
but for
schools.
those who are,
Or even homeschool.
yeah. Or for those,
I mean, I went to public school and I was exposed to things, but there's a great meme out there, and I can't remember what words are attached to it, but it shows a person walking and they've got like a bird cage on their head. And it's like all they have to do is lift it off and be free, but they feel like they're in prison. And I mean, I went to public school and was exposed to a lot of things, but I had been given so many thought-stopping techniques and things like that, that when things came up and my critical thinking was engaged, I instantly turned it off as I had been taught to do, so that it didn't sink in at the time. And which is really frustrating to look back on, because I was a very, I thought critically about everything in my life, but that one thing. I did a really good job of shutting that down.
Yeah.
I questioned everything everywhere else, but not there.
Because like
so,
imagine being told that the people who were teaching you in schools, like being told that they're lying to you or that what they say is incorrect. And now it's like, how am I supposed to trust anything in this environment to teach me the right stuff if what I'm being told is that they don't know what they're telling you? You like, if you think, if they're making you question, like just don't question it, and it just doesn't lead to, again, that critical thinking doesn't develop. And they become more followers and learn to just like go with what's told to them as they get older. And then now people are being given a platform to then be as the parents to then question the teachers and provide lawsuits and get them fired when they're just trying to do their duty as an educator.
You don't need the further education because the world's not going to go on forever.
Well, yeah.
So you don't need to have that. Like when you're Jen and I growing up, it's like, somewhere along the line here, not in the far off future, things are going to end and you won't need that further education for anything. You just,
there's so many guardrails that they, excuses that they make for that.
So you've had the freedom of education. What about, you mentioned earlier, pursuing after school activities and such. What about natural talents? Were there any that Lexi or Gabby, were there any things that you all, whether it was a natural talent that you got to develop or whether it was something that you just wanted to explore and see if it was for you, I guess, what were you all able to do? And then are there, how would you have felt if you never were free to do any of that?
Well, do JWs like condemn singing? Because we both did that.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't be able to sing at school.
it's still considered an extracurricular activity at a school.
I mean, they said you'd be in a acapella group.
Don't tell the elders.
That's way out the window now. And also look at, I was at a dance school. I went into dance lessons growing up, and especially the genre that I tended to take my classes in. That I took a lot of hip hop classes, and I'm actually a Zumba instructor now. So I mean, I definitely think that would not have.
I was gonna say your athleticism is really high, from Zumba to tennis to dancing. It's like you exhibit that rock climbing,
all
many
that
ways.
stuff. Yeah.
But then you and I were both also like musically really active.
Yeah, very musically active.
In band in middle school, choir in high school, and then when I went to college, I joined an a cappella group as well. So like we've been very, in terms of performing, we've been out there.
And also being able to follow the pop culture in that,
After college, a cappella group too.
In post collegiate a cappella group now.
In a rock band.
bands. Oh,
we'll see how
we'll get there.
I'm gonna say we'll see how that goes. It's still got.
How much has that though? How much have those experiences added to your lives? You're growing up, because we weren't allowed to do I'm not saying you can never find a Jehovah. There's always an outlier. There's an exception to every rule. And there were Jehovah's Witness parents that occasionally would allow a child to do something. But by and large, there was a shutting down of any extracurriculars whatsoever, because that is just more interaction with worldly people, and they could pose a danger to your spiritual health. So like, I love sports. I never got to play any. I never got to, my teachers wanted me to be in robotics competitions and things like that. I never got to do any of that. So, I was very limited and hamstrung in a lot of ways by that. And those are things I can't get back, not at least in that way. I can still go to a park and play basketball, but my NBA dreams are over. What about you? What's did it mean to you to be able to go and add that flavor to your life as a kid? Now, I mean, I understand that was just your norm, so you can't compare it. It's hard to compare it to not having had it, but what did it bring to your life?
I still think it was critical in helping us become who we are and really cultivating some of the relationships that we have. Like, if you look at tennis, like, yes, I enjoy playing the sport. It's a way for me to stay active, but the beginnings of it was a way for me to cultivate my relationship with my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
She introduced me to the sport. She's the one that brought me to lessons,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like our weekly outing, and we would go, and that's one thing that really kind of like, forged our relationship and kept that bond really strong, was over this extracurricular activity. So it cultivated, relationships there. Same thing with singing. She loved to sing. So obviously, like, at the Kingdom Hall, she would love to do that there, but we would sit down, we would watch like singing competitions. We'd watch American Idol together all the time. We would sit down and we would watch Dancing with the Stars, because I love dancing and she loved dancing. She would come over, like Lexi and I would be in the kitchen, just kind of singing, offhand, whatever. And she would go out of her way to come over from her side over to our side, just so she could stand there and like listen to us sing and experience that with us. So, cultivating those relationships, helping us grow as people. I was very involved in high school in a lot of extracurricular groups, specifics. I went to a VOTEC high school, and I was in a marketing field, and I did a lot of extracurriculars there, and going to conferences and getting to fly out of state on school trips and stuff.
Eating alligator.
Yes, I ate alligator on one of my trips. But really growing myself from being a super shy kid who never, like Mom, would not go in front of a camera to being able to grow into someone who's comfortable public speaking in front of others.
Yeah.
And it's really those experiences that was vital to making that growth as an individual.
And I think it was the environment that our parents made where we became comfortable to just approach them and be like, hey, I'm curious about this thing. Even if it doesn't work out, we were still given the space and the resources and opportunity to explore it and see where it went.
Like horseback riding. Yes.
Yeah, that didn't go very far. I didn't do horseback riding for very long. But I did it. And it was like, I felt comfortable enough to explore that and to see where it went, even if though it didn't work out, but other things did work out. And that was made possible because of the environment that they made for me to feel safe to approach that. And for the better, because doing so just makes us more well-rounded.
Yeah.
And, it just adds more pieces to us that make us more complex and ready to tackle things that come our way.
The word explore is a good one. That's not something that as Jehovah's Witnesses you're allowed to do. That exploration begins and ends at the pages of whatever publication has been given to you, largely. There's not a lot of other exploration to do. And so I think it's really great that you all, and honestly, I think it's really great. It's kind of cool, Gabby, that your grandma introduced you to some of these things, and then you were able to take them further in different ways. And I'm glad that you all have the opportunities to explore, to expand upon things. Like you said, not everything is your thing. Maybe horseback riding wasn't your thing or whatever.
I have some ribbons, but
But that's how you know. How do you know what you like in life when you're not ever allowed to explore anything? So I tell a lot of people in my coaching process, if you practice, if you never eat anything but meat and potatoes, you have no idea the culinary delights that are out there if you try other types of food as well. And so, and you're not gonna like everything, but that's okay. That's how you know, and that expands your horizons. And the same is true of so many things that I'm glad that you all have had the opportunity to explore. And then finally, as far as witness things go, what about the refusal to take blood? Do you all, I don't know if that's impacted you all at all or how much you know about it, but so the witnesses, obviously, they don't take blood transfusions, even if it's potentially life-saving. How do you, as two kids that are two people who as kids were raised, maybe apart from this a little bit more, what's your viewpoint on that?
I think when I was younger, I remember we have been in wonderful health as so far. Like we haven't been put in a situation where that might have been necessary. But I remember being younger and with our grandparents being more active. Like I said, we were very close with our grandparents, and I remember being like, if that ever comes to a point where they need that, why would they say no? And it was really scary to think that that could have been what helps them, and they just won't do it.
And that actually kind of came to a point. There was an operation that my grandfather ended up needing at one point, and it was a lot riskier, and they had to take a lot more time and care to kind of plan the surgery, specifically because of the fact that they couldn't do any sort of blood transfusions during the procedure. So what you typically would have done, they had to kind of think outside of the box, go in a completely different route about it. And there was then no guarantees. So it's like, yeah, you have our medical skill set has come so far in history to be able to provide, our population with alternatives and just so much progress, so that way you try and keep people as healthy as possible and complete things as safely as possible. And here you are kind of removing one of those safeguards and almost going a bit more archaic with it for pretty much almost no reason. Like, what's really going to happen? Really, so
it is really sad. And I can only imagine as a kid how much stress it would have been to know, because I've worked with people again who are in the middle of this as adults, who have maybe their adult parents are going in, or they found out they have some sort of a health problem, and blood is going to be on the table as far as something that really should be there as best practice. And it's just such a helpless feeling to watch someone that you love go through a surgery, knowing that they may not come out of it. I mean, and we have to admit that blood isn't a magic lifesaver that in all cases will always cure everything and fix all problems. But if that's something that's going to give you the best chance to live, why would you not take it? I mean, the biblical reasoning of theirs is so specious. It's so flimsy, and really, oh wow, it's just really, really awful, especially for an organization that talks about blood guilt so much. I mean, they literally have killed people over blood over and over and over again, and it's really, really sad.
I can tell you that as both when the girls were little, that was something that I was so scared of, is that something would happen where they needed one to survive. And my out on that in my mind always was, well, the state will just take custody of them and do whatever they need to do. And I hope that, but you're like, I hope there's enough time for that to happen. Like, if it's a trauma, there might not be enough time for all that to go down. And then, of course, with Dina, with the birth of both girls, and I just knew that if push came to shove, I didn't have enough faith to let them die. that it would just been like, yeah, give him blood, give him blood. Like,
Whatever.
The fact that there are people who would stand by and watch loved ones die, particularly in that pregnancy scenario we're talking about here, shows the power of the indoctrination. It must be pretty strong to make people literally turn away in that situation and to let someone in their life. And now, here's dad with maybe little baby, maybe, and no mother. And it's just, it's so sad. It's absolutely tragic. So I'm glad it didn't come up in your life in a traumatic way, where it ended up in a negative situation. So let's talk more just personally a little bit, Gabby and Lexi. Do you feel like today, do you feel like you get to be yourself? Do you feel like you got to form a sense of self and who you are growing up?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yes. But like, we're lucky in that way too, because again, you faded out way early, to the point where that was made that like an opportunity for us. I would say we're very authentically ourselves.
We are. And I think our lives have taken trajectories where if our parents hadn't kind of faded out when they did, our lives could have gone in very different directions. And that comes down to very, very many different aspects. I mean, aside from just, everything we've talked about, I mean, Lexi's very active with like the LGBTQ community, even with her current partner. I mean, I'm literally engaged to someone who is actively in the military. So, I mean, those directions, those paths of our lives never would have happened if things didn't play out the way they did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a question I have. So Mike had these other points about JW doctrine. How I know how you feel, but with their viewpoint, the JW viewpoint of the LGBTQ community, like how does that make you feel?
The same way that Christians being anti-gay. Why does it matter to you when you're not the one who's gay? You know what I mean? Like, again, I don't care what religion you practice, but as soon as it becomes a tool to hurt other people or control other people, like that's not okay. So me dating someone who's non-binary shouldn't have any effect on people who are praying, in their personal lives, because I'm not a JW anymore. I'm not Christian. That's not the way I practice my life. And even those who could be gay and Christian, it's like, that's up to that the religious freedom is there. So that way we're supposed to be able to practice religion or not practice the way that we want, and I don't understand how people can look at others and for something that's not relevant to themselves and be like, time to go out and make that person's life harder. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it is really hard. I think when you leave a cult and then you see things like that, it's hard to watch as well. I mean, I live in southern Indiana, but I'm literally just across the river from Louisville, Kentucky. In Kentucky, they've had all of these bills put forth. They're obsessed with the drag community and how they must shut down that community. And it's really hard to look at a religious person, particularly someone who might like the Pope or someone like that, and say, what, you don't like people playing dress up and pretending to be something? I mean, like, who cares? Why do we, let them be who they are? And if they, my wife goes to drag shows and they, they're pretending to be Katy Perry or Madonna or whoever and doing their thing. And it's like, how is anyone who's not there affected by any of that? And you chose to be there, so you enjoy it. If you don't leave, we were free to do that. It's so wild to see the control that is exerted, honestly, after leaving a cult too, by religious entities in these ways. And I'm really sorry when it reaches into the, even deeper into the personal lives of people and their, outright persecuted, individually to your face or whatever the case is. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible why can't everybody just be who they are?
Right. Because the queer community is just so happy and beautiful too. It's filled with people who are just like, all they want is for people to find their truest self. And there's nothing more pure than that, in my opinion. So the fact that people are getting condemned, shamed, there's a stigma around it. It's like for the principle of just wanting to find your truest self is just crazy to me. And how can you look at a community that's their goal and that's what they want for everybody and be like, you people are disgusting?
Yeah.
Like, how does that make sense to me? It doesn't.
It doesn't. I've only been to one Pride event, but I remember getting choked up there because it was just really cool to see everybody getting to be themselves, however that expresses, and just everybody coming together and having fun. And it felt, at least, like a somewhat judgment-free zone, and coming from Jehovah's Witnesses who are nothing but judgment. It was just fascinating and really overwhelming emotionally on some level to see people being able to be free at that level. It was really beautiful.
That was a huge area of personal growth for me to unshackle all that. And, it was, I say all the time, these are my two greatest teachers sit next to me, because I've learned so much from them in how to look at things from a different viewpoint and how to be more open-minded about things. And that's been a huge change for me to be open and accepting, especially of that community.
Not only accepting, you advocate too. Like, you see things and you call people out and you question things for them. You're like, but why is that something that you feel? Why is this an issue for you? And it forces people to have to think about their biases and like what has happened to them and where are they coming from that makes them feel this way? Why is it such an issue that they feel like they need to go out and make people's lives harder? Like, why is that your path right now?
Yeah.
I think you were very patient though too. Dad and I were raised a certain way.
Sure.
It took a little while to get the understanding and the change of different things, and just to
I'm still struggling
change our thought process.
I'm still struggling with pronouns, but I'm getting better.
But what's great is that you're not purposefully making it difficult. You're like, you're trying to understand it. You understand that this is like a real thing that people feel, and you're like, and you don't invalidate in any way. You're like, you're working on making it a habit to normalize different pronouns.
Absolutely.
It's just normalizing the habit now. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, and I guess that maybe that gives you all some perspective too. Maybe Lexi and Gabby not growing up that way. Your parents did grow up. I mean, my dad was an elder and a very racist and homophobic person. And I grew up around that. And while the racism really didn't take, certainly the homophobia did. And I had to challenge myself. And what happened? Oh, I met some gay people. And I was like, these people are awesome. Why do you care? What in the world is why am I being taught such hateful things? I just, never met any knowingly inside the organization. Right. Because I'm sure I know now that I did, but knowingly I had not. And it's ignorance. You don't know, it's fear. There's a lot of things that are, put into people, and maybe it helps you guys to see that people who have those viewpoints aren't always just necessarily terrible people through and through. Maybe they need to take a chance, or they haven't been given a chance, or maybe they're attached to something that they came through, and, hopefully they will grow, but sadly, many will not.
Yeah.
We all have different perspectives and we come from different places. And I'm sorry I came from the one that I came from, but that wasn't my choice.
Don't be apologetic for something out of your control, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's not good to have felt the feelings that you had when you look back. But there has to be an acceptance and a forgiveness for the fact that it was bred into you. It was taught as this is the only way. You have to see this to survive in ways. I mean, it's really messed up. And so, yeah, what options do you really have when you're a kid raised in that environment? It's pretty difficult. So talking about options, what opportunities then, and I think you've touched on it a little bit, but Gabby and Lexi, what kind of opportunities have you all been able to avail yourself of in your life that you really have appreciation for?
Honestly, my social work path and the career that I'm going into was fully supported in a way that like I didn't expect, and is also not an option that I knew until actually my roommate actually told me it. My roommate, who was also non-binary, and they were just like, listen, journalism is not your thing right now, you're not enjoying it, you really want to change majors. And I was like, I know I do. And social work was presented as an option, and what social work stands for is not at all what JWs would stand for. You know, and people can look at social work and think it's just DCF, and it's really not. There's so many different directions that a social worker can go in with your degree and how you practice. And where I'm going with it, with being policy practice, is again, not something that JWs would support. So that's being tenfold supported by my family in many ways. Well, the conversations we have at home that are just actively participating in that language of political and social work language, but then them being like so proud of me and being like empowering to continue down this road is just, I feel so, it's a direction I feel very complete with. Like I feel very like I'm going to be very fulfilled with this, and I don't doubt that even a little bit, and it's because of the support that I've had.
Yeah,
Awesome.
You know, our life paths in general, everything we've kind of been able to do, like we've gotten to explore everything we've really wanted to explore and really find out like who we are as people, with no, you know, without any barriers. You know, we get to do everything that we enjoy. So it's like, I have a job that I enjoy, but I also have extracurriculars. I get to be a part of, you know, a local nonprofit and raise money to, you know, try and cure breast cancer and take a leadership role within that organization. Like, as, you know, not even just like, you know, coming from a JW family back in the day, like taking a leadership role, but also being a female taking a leadership role.
Yeah.
Like that is a young female, I'm on a board of directors. So like kind of just being able to pursue all those paths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with we spoke about it a minute with our partners, like you're dating someone who's involved in the military and Navy, and I'm dating someone who's non-binary, and these are people who we love and we expect to spend our lives with. And again, nothing but support about who we choose to love.
I think you've already touched on it a lot, but the next question that I had was, who are you today? How would you describe yourself? I think you all just described yourselves in a lot of ways. Do you have anything to add to that?
I think we're just like, we are complete people. We are completely self-identifiable, and, you know, we're ever changing, ever evolving, and we get to do that with a supportive family. And, you know, we have strong family ties that we can always fall back on, and we get to be ourselves without the fear of failure.
Yeah. Good wording.
Thank you.
Wow, getting to be yourself without the fear of failure.
Yeah, he's jotting down that timestamp right now.
That is the title.
That is a really good contrast to just being told that you're a failure.
Yeah.
And living that kind of every day, and that you were born a failure or a little enemy of God, and that you must somehow account for your failure throughout the years.
No, we're still enemies of God. Proud of it.
So what are your dreams? Do you have any dreams, either of you? Any dreams that you have for your future, if you don't mind sharing?
I want to hear your dreams too.
Our dreams?
Yeah. Our dreams?
Well, you guys are a big part of that. The two biggest. For us, dreams. I mean, I have some crazy ones, but I don't know. I got to work on how to making those come to fruition. I don't know. I just got to finish the next however many years together.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by my dreams. I talk about them all the time, constantly, and there's nobody I like hanging out more with than her. And these two are pretty good too, but
Yeah, we're all right.
so I don't know, just living the rest of our life together. I always say, people ask me if I took anything good away from the cult. And I said, yeah, I took 3 good things away from the cult: my wife and my 2 daughters.
So you're living the dream.
You live in the dream. What about you, Mom?
I dream a genie.
I think it's just that, I mean, your father and I enjoy doing things together, and we go places, and we'll just go on vacation, just the 2 of us, which is great. You know, did I ever think that we'd be at the point in our life where we could do that? But the girls are growing up. They're both great adults and very responsible and have great goals in mind for themselves. And I just see them both on paths to where they're just very happy. And that leaves Dino and I to be able to enjoy their happiness and what future comes with them. Not pushing grandchildren or anything, just saying that down the road, when we have grandchildren, that'll be another thing that we can enjoy, if that's so the path that you take. But, you know, I just think that, and getting to spend time all together, we enjoy that. We do really enjoy that. So when people look at us and go, "You guys are going again? You're going? We're even at Gary, our dad and I are going out to dinner with you and Derek." It's like, oh, that's your.
But that's what we do with your parents.
Yeah, but so, I think we're just very family oriented.
Yeah,
and we enjoy that.
I was gonna say we just enjoy each other's company regularly. It's not like we feel like forced up to hang out with each other because we're family and we have to love each other. It's like, no, like we genuinely choose.
Yeah, well, to have that for the rest of our lives is good.
We all have individual goals and achievements that we want to get. But I think the ultimate dream is just that we all live a life that makes us happy.
For sure.
And whatever, you know, we do what it takes to get there. And, you know, we're all kind of doing it in our own way.
What does that look like? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we are all extremely hard workers.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's probably too much, and we do, but it's a hallmark of the 4 of us. Good or bad, I don't know. I mean, there's sometimes
I look at Mom working in the living room at 10 o'clock at night on her laptop when she clocked out 4 hours ago, and I'm like, can you go to bed?
But there is a sense of appreciation and respect that everybody here is just extremely hard workers, and the things that we can go and do or have been able to help with is a result of all that hard work. It's a product of extremely hard work.
Yes.
Nothing was given.
Yeah, and you can see that with that work ethic, your kids here are educated. You'll have your own relationships and maybe your own goals in those relationships or dreams there. Your career goals, some of those things have been mentioned already, some things that you want to get involved in, things like that. It's nice to have that option, because I know for most Jehovah's Witnesses, the dream was provided. It was to just make it through this world, survive, and then you would be given a paradise. That dream was provided for you. There were really not supposed to be a lot of other goals other than just getting past that moment of Armageddon and the destruction of the world around us, so that you could have this kind of nebulous, doesn't really make sense if you think about it deeply, paradise. But you all have real opportunities, and even if you don't even know what a specific dream would be today, you at least have the freedom to pursue it, the work ethic, the education. You have the tools needed to go find those things if, as life goes on, more dreams come your way.
Yeah. No, what do you want to do with your future?
I just, I want to build my career, stay a part of things that I feel are making a change, like my nonprofit, and, have a family that I'm happy, and just, be able to continue to have love in my life.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm definitely on that path.
I think so too.
So
No, very similar. I want to take my career to the furthest I can take it in ways that I feel like I'm making a difference. Because I want to be able to address public education, child welfare, and like my internship was at DCF, and it was very enlightening, and it opened my eyes to a lot of issues, things I was aware of, but I didn't see how much they applied concretely. So it exposed me to a lot there as well. And I think there's room for better practice in so many different areas that I would love to address in some form, even if I can't do all of them, just dive into one and make like real big concrete change, at least within one system would be great. And then just to find family, like beyond like with this, and then expanding it to others who I'll come to love and want to just integrate further into my life. So I just want, again, just like I want to find further love in every other way.
yeah.
Love and happiness. What more can you ask for? That's pretty good. So I have a few final questions for you guys in total. So anyone feel free to chime in, but what have you all been able to do as a family that maybe you never would have done if you all were Jehovah's Witnesses? Are there things you all been able to do together?
A lot of the volunteering stuff.
Yeah. We've done a lot of volunteering together.
Yeah.
Gab,
What kind of volunteering do you do?
well, Gab came to Joplin with us, which that whole, if we had stayed in the cult, that whole experience would have never happened. And to have her spend 10 days with me and my other friend, and just that experience overall, she was stuffed in the middle seat of this van surrounded by tools, but she kind of like, I don't know, she just kept the whole trip kind of fun. That entire time. All of our family trips and vacations have just been nothing but a blast, and being able to celebrate milestones with them while on these vacations. I'm sure Lexi had her first official alcoholic drink with us in Disney World. Gab got to celebrate, we got to celebrate birthdays,
Graduation.
Yeah. Which, with the birthdays, even though for me, like celebrating my birthday is not a big deal to me, but I love celebrating their birthdays, and I really love celebrating hers, because then she's 2 years older than me for this short window of time, which I always exploit.
Like 2 months. It doesn't count.
You're in 2 months, but for those 2 months, she's 2 years older.
Yeah. I mean, we all, during COVID, everyone was doing like the red heart surround and everything, like during the thick of it. And that's something we all kind of got to do. We started, Lexi and I designed the heart that we wanted to make because it had to be very perfect.
Yeah.
Dad would cut them out, and then we would all paint them together, and like those would go up around, and it was just chances, to kind of bond and spend that time, show gratitude and for our community. I literally, for my nonprofit, enlist all of them. We have a big marathon walk that we do once a year.
I was going to say that.
Every year, they know that they're on the sign-up list. Like, I'm not even asking them if they're volunteering. They're just already listed as volunteers.
For that day.
So what's funny about that is, in so many different parts of life, everybody is Dino's daughter, Dino's wife.
Yeah.
We go to these nonprofit. Oh, you're Gabby's dad.
Yes.
Oh, you're Gabby's mom. But it's still awesome because, again, she's in that leadership role there, and to know how important she is and how much she does for the other people there, it just, as a parent, it makes you feel great.
Oh yeah, doing volunteer work that actually matters is a beautiful thing. Gabby, what is your nonprofit? I think you've mentioned. I don't know if you mentioned the name of it or anything.
I haven't. So it's it's the Terry Broder Breast Cancer Foundation. It's based out of southeastern Connecticut, and we really focus on raising money that goes to researchers that are doing research for breast cancer. Most of them are looking for a cure. Some are looking for better treatments. And we really distinguish ourselves by making sure that 100% of all the donations goes directly towards that research. So over the last 18 years now, we've raised about $6 million and been able to fund 60 researchers.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
We're reaching the point where some of our original researchers that we funded are starting to encourage like those under them, like their prodigies and the people that they're teaching, to apply for the grant. So now we get to kind of, affect a whole new generation and really expand. So yeah, we're excited. We're really trying to get to all 50 states. That's our goal. Have a walker from all 50 states because we have a virtual option. So yeah, we're excited.
And that's fundraiser is a
Breast
walk
cancer walk.
Yeah.
in the first Saturday in October.
Yeah.
And you did it virtually during COVID.
Yeah.
We did it virtually during COVID. That's what got us started on that track. So
And they're funding literally cutting edge research.
yes, yeah. We try to get like newest of the new researchers who are just getting into the field. They're trying to open like their first labs and they really want to try, new research that no one's thought of before. They're trying to, think outside of the box and do what it takes to really identify, what is causing it and what can we do to eliminate the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Would you care to share a web domain or something if people could donate?
It's tbbcf.org. So short for Terry Broder Breast Cancer Foundation. And we have everything on there. We have all the information about the founder, who was actually a woman with breast cancer herself. So the founder is Norma Logan. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. She did a walk and found out, for one of the big organizations, found out that most of the money that she raised, because they raised a ton of money, was actually going to overhead. And she wasn't happy with that. And she's like, no, I want to fund research. Like, I want to actually make a difference. So she started this nonprofit. She got a whole bunch of people from Pfizer where she worked involved, and it's been going for 18 years now. They named it after another local woman, Terry Broder, who had recently passed away from breast cancer when she founded the organization. Very young mother. And then actually less than a year after she founded the organization, Norma Logan passed away. But pretty much every single person that she brought onto the team as part of that initial core group still remains with the organization. So
that's awesome. Well, I'll be sure and put a link in the show notes and in the description on YouTube as well. So if anybody wants to donate to that, sounds like a great place to send your money, your hard-earned money, because it sounds like it would actually be put to work.
Yes.
You want to walk? And you're not in Connecticut, no issues there. We have options.
Yeah, we're just starting our walk registration for October, so plenty of time to get involved.
Very cool.
Last week we had to eat ice cream sundaes as a fundraiser. It was horrible.
Yeah.
First day.
That is a terrible fundraiser.
Sacrifices.
Take the one for the team, right?
Yeah.
So
That now we're more in touch with the community, like more involved in community things.
Yeah.
When you do
Just
stuff like that.
just a little bit.
Whereas you would never have been able to do any of those things.
For sure.
So-
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that we've done in the community, it's not encouraged as a JW. So, we've built buddy benches together. Like, the Hearts, we've done community build projects together, Habitat for Humanity stuff. We've been involved in so many, clean up the streets, cornhole boards, tournament. Yeah, we've done so many neat things as a family.
well, that's an amazing thing that you all have all gotten to participate in. I'm glad that you all have your different ways that you've been able to participate. So what about individually? Have there been things individually? And maybe we've touched on a lot of those probably already, but anything that you can think of that you've been able to do individually that maybe you would never have gotten to do had, particularly for you, Gabby and Lexi, had your life continued. But I mean, as Jehovah's Witnesses, but I think you've already mentioned quite a few things, but if there's anything else, feel free to share.
No, I think,
we
really kind of touched on all of them.
We tried bragging as much as possible.
You got some ink on your arm that probably would have been.
Well,
Yeah, tattoos.
tell you at one point, I got 2 tattoos in January.
Yeah.
I'd always wanted to do that. I waited a while until I felt it was right.
Yeah.
But it ended up being a bigger issue with Gabby than it was with you.
I know, I was like super cool.
You're like super cool about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a big part of self-expression for.
And no, I can get one.
And the luck spreads, but no, I was really scared to show my dad my tattoos at first, when I really should have been nervous to tell this one because she was the first person I showed and she had the worst reaction.
It wasn't that bad.
To my face, it wasn't that bad. What you told your fiance was a different
If it
story.
had been a year and a half down the road, it would have been a totally different reaction.
Right.
So
This is the
Exaggerate a
stuff.
little bit.
These are the things I live for, Mike.
Well, and that's cool because what Lexi did there is something that, I mean, it is part of exploring, right? New things. And then everybody in the family is now confronted with the thought of, oh, what about this thing? If it wasn't something that people had thought about. And that's how we grow, is by being exposed to other things. So I love that. That's great.
And you could have been able to cohabitate
That's right. Yeah. So yeah.
before getting married. So there's
Yeah, I do. Yep. Me and my fiance do live together, which I think is actually very important because
Yeah.
it gives
Yeah.
you
Yes.
the opportunity to, really feel out what it's going to be like because, you're choosing to spend your life with this person. But what if it doesn't work? What if being able to live together just really, you have to be able to figure out, how you work together. And being able to do that before we actually get married is very beneficial.
and I just totally lucked out that I married your father.
Yeah,
exactly.
no, I'm glad we didn't have that. We couldn't do that ahead of time because you would have. No, you would have bailed on me. Yeah, you might.
Tina would run away. So what about memories? Let's talk about memories. Let's end on a note where we're looking back at life. Do you all have maybe one memory each, or if you have more than that, just some really cool things that you remember from your life together that you'd like to share that means maybe a lot to you individually?
for some reason, even though we never celebrated holidays, we did always celebrate Thanksgiving. And that's
We
like
did.
a time where
Yeah.
like mom, because your side of the family, dad is like elsewhere, like that part of your extended family is elsewhere. And I don't know how close we are with them.
Mhm.
But with mom's side of the family, we're fairly close. And so we all gather for Thanksgiving, even though we're really not supposed to. We weren't supposed to. But it was just like, but that's like really common for us to just like come together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big
Yeah,
family
well,
dinner.
And,
Yeah.
and over the years, it kind of evolved. So it's like, even though we wouldn't necessarily celebrate Christmas, we would all get together around
Yeah.
Christmas and just, enjoy time together
Loopholes.
or like around
Loopholes.
New Year's
Yeah.
and just being able to have those moments to just spend
Mhm.
together as family and just enjoy.
I think your Grammy started that.
Yeah, I was saying,
So
we didn't.
I think that
we-
all
we
started
all-
later.
We all didn't exchange gifts, but Dina's mom had gifts
Gifts
for
for
everybody.
We're gonna
It's kind of funny.
have brunch on
Yeah.
Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, and I happen to have this for you.
Yeah.
And then we can all go to the movies in the afternoon because that's what's open on Christmas.
Yeah.
You pick a movie and go to the movie.
Yeah.
So we found loopholes to do the things we wanted.
Mhm.
But there are times I remember we've talked about this at the art awards at my high school. There was that one student who dressed how they wanted with like a top hat and a cloak, and it was
Yep.
amazing. And other people would be like, that's a bit strange. And I remember, Dad, you made a little comment
I did.
about you felt it was strange.
Uh-huh.
And I just remember being like, but that's just so cool that they just do what they want to do.
Like her sense
know?
of style is so amazing.
Yeah, I was like, there's other stuff. Like they just know what they want, and
And
Yeah.
I was like, look at Alexandra, like finding the positive in this moment. Like I was being, I was trying to be snarky and made a Harry Potter comment or something like that. And she was just like, oh, what? No, this person is just, they had the confidence to express themselves and dress this way. And isn't that amazing? And I was like, yeah, actually it kind of is. Because I wouldn't have had the guts to do that in high school. And this person did it. Like, unbelievable. For me, so there's two high school memories, one of each of them, that Gabrielle was very high achieving in school, and at the awards night it was kind of like she was just doing laps to go up and and getting the awards, and it was to the point where it's like it was almost embarrassing. Like, all right, well, I got another one for this kid. Please don't say that
You're
name
like, oh my
anymore.
God, give it to somebody else.
Yes. And then for Alexandra, not that she wasn't high achieving, because she was, but we went to that awards night, and monetarily wise or whatever, and I look at things in a weird sense, but there was like a very academically high achieving student that was there who got a lot of awards.
Mhm.
And then when I looked at Alexandra, she had almost as many awards, but it was from such a diverse variety of avenues.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we raised a really, like, and I feel it to be fortunate on our part to see her this way, a very well-rounded person.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like all in science or math. It was like it came from a broad spectrum. And I was like, that's really awesome to have been able to influence and guide her, but also let her find her path however she wanted it to be. That was a really cool memory that I had from both of them in high school.
What about you, Dina? Got anything?
I just think about over all the years and all the things that we've got to do as a family, whether it's Lexi's graduation picnic out back, singing karaoke.
Yeah.
Gabrielle had a graduation picnic out back, going on vacations together, whether we're going to Disney or going to the Grand Canyon, whether it was with just us or the whole family, like additional family members, and doing things together now as family. To me, those are all of the great memories of being the family that loves to spend time together.
Mhm.
And even if it's not just the four of us, if it's including others, we have little text message groups that are sometimes the four of us.
Yeah.
Sometimes the guys are added, so there's six, and then there's one with the extended family. So we have all kinds of family pieces that I think are great, and I think those make all for great memories.
Well, and experiences that we have and how close we are really just kind of comes through in our interactions. And some people may pick up on it during some of this podcast. There are times where we will have a conversation that entirely just consists of quotes from different things that we've watched together as a family. And like, we can have a conversation like that because of those moments that we've shared.
Yeah.
And, it's literally like an entire conversation, but it's just quotes from, comedy specials, movies, songs, like all different things.
A lot of jump
Broadway plays. Hamilton, Book of Mormon. This one in particular, but both of them, we went to see Book of Mormon together, and we quote that constantly. And I'm like, it's real, man. Like, that really happens.
But I think
one of the things I love, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I just think that, and it's nice that they're comfortable wanting to spend time with their parents.
Yeah.
Other kids, even as through high school and stuff, it wasn't like, oh my God, don't look at me. So I think that's a great thing.
Sometimes probably more than they prefer. They like to go out on date nights, and one of us will just tag along.
Yeah.
We invited your fiance last night.
We did.
He blew us off.
We turned a mom and dad date into a triple date with them and us and all of our partners.
Yeah.
So
It's all good.
2 turns to 6.
But also
Awesome.
like the extended family, friends and family that we have, where and that run the gamut from people that are their age up to people in their 70s that we all hang out with and have a good time with, that we've been able to have this. We've made our own congregation of acolytes.
One of the things I was thinking of when I first asked the question, you all were talking about holidays, was that Jehovah's Witnesses make holidays, not that material things aren't a part of it, but I mean, giving gifts is a love language. It's part of how people show affection at times. But taking that out of it, holidays are about family. And as somebody who grew up with holidays till I was about 8, and then my parents became Jehovah's Witnesses, and all the family went away with all the holidays, so I didn't see those people anymore. I think it's really lovely that everything that you all have talked about post-holiday, and this last little part of the discussion has been about family. It's just about being together and the sense of belonging and things like that. And I think that that's one of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses absolutely destroy. And I think it's one of the things that I'm so happy to see you all claim, because that's your legacy. That's what you all live for. And now you get to build upon that as people have partners. And I don't want to mention the grandkids word just because it was thrown out. But as families change over time and new people are brought in and that family grows, that's a wonderful thing. And that's certainly the antithesis of the shrinking family in the organization. And so what a beautiful thing that you all get to share that together. And I'm really happy that that Tadiska's got to share this with all of us then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love just seeing them be the perfect whatever it is that they want to be.
Yeah.
I mean, they are perfect the way that they are. And I hope we're not unique as far as coming out of the cult. I know a lot of people have vastly different experiences, and I know how lucky and fortunate we are to be as close as we are to be complete, a full family. But for those that are just leaving, 20 years ago, we were in that same spot where we didn't have it all figured out. Not that we have it figured out now, but we didn't know how this was all going to end. And there's hope. And their kids will be much better prepared for whatever comes next. And they will be better parents because of us having gotten out. And so anybody that's watching, you'll be better parents. Your children will be better parents for having had the courage to leave.
Yeah. And it's certainly not always a pretty journey at first. It's going to be messy, and that's going to be part of it because of where we come from and sometimes what we're thrown out into without any support. But there is hope, and there are people who make it work over time with lots of hard work and being willing to be open and go through those tough moments and not run away from them. And I'm glad that you all are one example of a family that has been able to stick together, come together. Again, I know not everyone has the same circumstances, and it's not to make anyone feel less than if they don't. Everybody is on their own journey, trying to figure it out. But certainly we can all learn from one another. And so finding people who have been able to figure a few things out is a great way to learn, if we can do so. And so I'm glad that you all were willing and able to all come together on a Sunday and to share your time with everybody.
Still better than a meeting.